Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! Isaac stepped into his mother's bedroom, his heart pounding in his ears. The sun shone through the window, casting a warm glow over the room. He paused, taking a moment to steady his breath, before moving toward the wardrobe. He ran his fingers over the smooth wooden surface, a contrast to the rough edge of the curiosity that had been building within him. The wardrobe loomed large, a fortress guarding secret treasures. Isaac's curiosity had been piqued ever since he was little, when he would watch his mother get ready for special occasions. The way she transformed herself with silk and makeup had always fascinated him. Now, with the house to himself, he had the chance to explore this fascination. He carefully turned the handle and opened the wardrobe doors, a rush of anticipation washing over him. The scent of his mother's perfume hung in the air, familiar and comforting. The inside of the wardrobe was a sea of color and texture, with silk scarves and dresses hanging neatly on their hangers. Isaac reached out, his fingers grazing the soft fabrics, a delicious shiver running through him. His gaze landed on a simple slip dress, a cascade of silk in a soft shade of peach. It called to him, whispering promises of transformation and freedom. Isaac carefully extracted the dress from its hanger, holding it up to admire the way it caught the light. The silk was fine and delicate, a caress against his skin. He hesitated, his heart racing as he considered trying it on. The house was quiet, and he knew he had time before his mother would be home. Isaac made his decision and stepped out of his jeans and t-shirt, the familiar clothing falling away to reveal a hidden part of himself. The silk slid over his skin as he pulled the dress on, the soft fabric a sensuous caress. He smoothed it down, feeling the way it clung to his body, accentuating his shape. Isaac turned to the mirror, his breath catching in his throat as he took in his reflection. The dress transformed him, and he felt a rush of excitement and liberation. He looked damn good. "Damn," he whispered, his eyes widening at the stranger in the mirror. The afternoon sun illuminated his figure, the silk dress shimmering slightly as he moved. Isaac felt a sense of power and secrecy as he explored this new side of himself. He twisted and turned, admiring the way the dress fell and flowed with his movements. It was a world away from the constrictive clothing he usually wore, and he relished the sensation. "It's just a dress," he reminded himself, a slight smile playing on his lips. "It's not like it means anything." But even as he spoke the words, Isaac knew they weren't entirely true. This was more than just a dress. It was an expression of something he had kept hidden, even from himself. It was a release, a step into a world where he could be whoever he wanted. The dress became a part of him, and he felt a sense of ownership over it, even as he knew it belonged to his mother. He twirled, laughing softly as the silk floated around him. In that moment, he felt free. "Isaac!" His mother's voice carried up the stairs, bringing him back to reality with a jolt. He stilled, his heart hammering in his chest as he realized how little time he had left. Quickly, he stepped out of the dress, careful to smooth out any creases, and hung it back in its place within the wardrobe. He straightened the scarves he had disturbed, ensuring everything was exactly as he had found it. As he closed the wardrobe doors, his reflection in the mirror caught his eye. For a moment he looked almost disappointed, as if something were missing. Then, with a shake of his head, he turned and hurried from the room, his heart still racing from the thrill of his secret exploration. "In here, Mom!" he called out, the dress's soft silk still fresh in his mind. His heart was pounding as he pulled open the front door for his mother, and he knew his cheeks were flushed. He felt like he was keeping a wild secret, one that lit him up from the inside, giving him an energy he'd never known before. His mother entered, and he tried to decipher any clues on her face, any sign that she knew what he'd done. But, as always, she was a mystery, her thoughts and observations hidden behind a smile. "Everything okay?" she asked, her eyes scanning the room. "You look flushed." Isaac's heart hammered in his chest. "Yeah, I'm fine," he replied, his voice calm, belying the rush of adrenaline that still coursed through him. "Just, been doing some homework. It's a warm one today." His mother raised an eyebrow, her gaze sharp, but she didn't press further. "Well, I'm heading out again soon. I won't be back until late, so help yourself to dinner." Isaac nodded, a mix of relief and disappointment washing over him. On one hand, he was glad for more time to explore, but the thrill of secrecy and the risk of discovery was what made his heart race. "Okay, Mom. Have a good night."
"Love you. Love you too, sweetheart."
As his mother drove away, Isaac felt the weight of the secret lift slightly. He had more time to indulge, to explore this new world he had discovered. He felt drawn to it, as if the dresses and scarves were a gravitational force pulling him in. He found himself back in his mother's bedroom, the wardrobe a silent sentinel. Isaac approached it with a new familiarity, a secret smile on his face as he pictured the array of colors and textures within. He chose a vibrant emerald green dress this time, the silk a rich, luxurious fabric that felt like liquid on his skin. As he slid into the dress, he felt a sense of empowerment. The color brought out a warmth in his skin, and he imagined himself attending a fancy ball, an anonymous masked figure dancing the night away. He spun and dipped, the dress twirling around him, a living, breathing part of the fantasy. The fantasy world he had entered was one of glamour and intrigue, where he could be anyone, and the dress was his ticket to a new identity. But as the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the room, he was pulled back to reality. Isaac slowed, his breath catching as he realized how lost he had become in his imagination. The fantasy dissipated, and he was left with the soft silk of the dress and the quiet of the house. With a slight sigh, he stepped out of the dress, a small sadness accompanying the loss of the fantasy. He carefully hung the dress back in its place, ensuring no trace of his exploration remained. The wardrobe whispered to him, its secrets safe, as he closed the doors and turned away, the fantasy lingering in his mind. The next dress was a soft, dusky rose color, the silk a little heavier and more structured. It fell to his knees, a classic style that made him feel refined and elegant. He spent the afternoon imagining himself at a sophisticated dinner party, charming guests with his wit and grace. Each dress became a new character, a new world to explore. Some days he was a powerful executive, the sleek lines of a navy blue dress accentuating his authority. Other days he chose a softer, more fluid silk, the pale gray dress a cloud-like cocoon as he imagined himself lost in a daydream, painting watercolors by the sea. Isaac lost himself in these stolen moments, creating stories and fantasies with each dress, each scarf. They became his companions, his confidants, as he shared his secrets and dreams with them. The silk was a canvas for his imagination, and he filled the quiet house with his laughter and whispers, always careful to return everything to its original place before his mother returned. As time went on, he became bolder, his curiosity leading him to experiment with not just dresses, but the full ensemble, adding his mother's shoes, jewelry, and makeup to his transformations. He learned to walk in heels, the click of the shoes on the hardwood floors, a secret rhythm. He practiced applying lipstick, his mouth a bold statement against the soft silk.
Who am I today?
He would whisper to himself, a sense of anticipation building as he stepped into the wardrobe's embrace. Some days he was a glamorous movie star, the dress a sleek, form-fitting creation that hugged his curves. He would strike dramatic poses, imaginary flashbulbs popping as he walked the red carpet. Other days he became a mysterious spy, the dress a clever disguise as he sneaked and prowled, imagining himself on a secret mission. He kept the dresses immaculate, always mindful of his mother's trust. Each time he returned a dress to its home, he did so with a sense of reverence, grateful for the freedom they offered him. The wardrobe became his sanctuary, a place where he could truly be himself, whoever that may be on any given day. The scarves joined the rotation, a rainbow of silks that he draped and twisted, creating new characters and stories. He discovered a talent for tying them in intricate knots, a skill he honed with each visit to the wardrobe. As the seasons changed, Isaac found new delights within the wardrobe. He discovered a collection of winter silks, heavier and more opulent, that he layered and paired with soft scarves. He became a regal ice queen, ruling over a frozen fantasyland, or a mysterious figure, hooded and cloaked, stalking through a Gothic castle. One snowy afternoon, he chose a dress of deep crimson, the silk a luxurious weight against his skin. He paired it with a matching scarf, the rich color a vivid contrast to the white landscape beyond the window. As he looked out at the falling snow, he imagined himself in a horse-drawn sleigh, wrapped in furs, a mysterious traveler on an urgent mission. He spun and danced, the silk whispering against the floor, his breath misting in the cold room. The dress brought a flush to his cheeks, and he felt alive, his heart racing as he lost himself in the fantasy. But, as the daylight faded and the snow turned to darkness, he was brought back to reality with a jolt. With a soft laugh, he untied the scarf, the fantasy dissolving as he returned the dress and scarf to their places within the wardrobe. He knew that tomorrow would bring new adventures, new identities to explore. "You're so serious today." The deep voice of his friend Jake interrupted his thoughts. Isaac started, his fingers stilled on the laptop keyboard. He was at the library, supposedly studying with Jake, but his mind had wandered, as it often did, to the world within his mother's wardrobe. "Huh?" he replied, his eyes focusing on Jake's concerned face. Jake raised an eyebrow. "Where'd you go just now? Your eyes glazed over and you were miles away." Isaac felt a flush rise to his cheeks.
"Oh, just thinking."
Jake gave him a sidelong look, but didn't press further. Isaac knew his friend well enough to sense when he was curious, and he also knew that Jake wouldn't push him to reveal something he wasn't ready to share. The wardrobe had become his sanctuary, but it was a secret he kept guarded, locked away in a hidden corner of his mind. It was his private world, one he feared sharing, even with his closest friends.
"You okay, though?"
Jake asked, his voice low.
"You seem different lately, almost like you're keeping something from me."
Isaac's heart hammered in his chest. He knew Jake suspected something, but he wasn't ready to divulge his secret. Not yet.
"I'm fine,"
he replied, forcing a smile. "Just a lot on my mind, School, family stuff." Jake studied him for a moment, his gaze intense, before finally nodding. "If you say so, but remember, I'm here if you need to talk."
"About anything." "I know,"
Isaac murmured, his throat tight.
"Thanks, man."
As they continued their study session, Isaac's mind kept wandering, a part of him longing to be back in his mother's bedroom, running his fingers over the smooth silk, dreaming up new identities. The wardrobe called to him, a silent, secret siren song that he couldn't ignore. Christmas approached, and with it, the promise of more time to indulge in his secret hobby. Isaac's excitement built as he envisioned the holidays stretching out before him, days filled with silk and fantasy. On one such day, as snow fell softly outside, he chose a dress of deep forest green, the silk a lush, decadent fabric that made him feel sophisticated and elegant. He added a gold scarf, the rich color a vibrant contrast, and imagined himself at a grand ball, a mysterious figure surrounded by opulence and luxury. He danced and twirled, his movements graceful and fluid, the silk whispering with his every step. The fantasy consumed him, and he lost himself in a world of glamour and sophistication, far removed from his everyday life. But, as he spun, his eyes closed, a soft, contented smile on his face, he failed to notice the front door opening, his mother stepping quietly into the house. A draft of cold air sneaked up the stairs, a harbinger of his mother's return. Isaac's eyes flew open as he sensed a presence, his heart leaping to his throat as he turned to see his mother standing in the bedroom doorway, a look of surprise on her face. For a long moment, they simply stared at each other, the silence thick with unspoken questions. Isaac's mind raced, his heart pounding as he searched for an explanation, a way to make sense of this moment. But his mouth opened and closed like a fish, gasping for air, no words forming. His mother's expression softened, and she took a step into the room. "Isaac, sweetheart, I had no idea." Isaac's breath caught, his eyes flicking to the dress, the scarf still dangling from his hands. He felt exposed, vulnerable, as if his secret world had been torn open, the fantasy threatened. "I can explain," he began, his voice shaking. His mother held up a hand, her eyes warm and understanding. "You don't need to explain, Isaac. It's okay." "But," Isaac started, his heart hammering in his chest. "Let's just talk," she said, her voice gentle. "Come sit with me." He nodded, his legs feeling like jelly as he followed her out of the bedroom and downstairs to the kitchen. A million thoughts raced through his mind, questions and fears swirling. They sat at the kitchen table, the silence heavy as they both gathered their thoughts. Isaac stole glances at his mother, searching her face for any sign of anger or disappointment, but her expression was unreadable. Finally, she spoke, her voice calm and steady. "Isaac, I want you to know that I love you and I support you, no matter what. What I walked in on today, it's not what I expected, but it doesn't change how I feel about you." Isaac's breath hitched, his eyes stinging as he heard the acceptance and love in her words. He began, his voice thick with emotion. She reached across the table, taking his hand in hers. "You don't have to explain, Isaac. Not if you don't want to. But I want you to know that I'm here for you, no matter what. You can talk to me about anything." He nodded, his throat tight, the weight of her acceptance a relief he hadn't realized he'd been carrying. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice hoarse. She gave his hand a squeeze. "Do you want to tell me about it? About why you've been keeping this secret?" Isaac took a breath, his eyes dropping to the table as he gathered his thoughts. "I don't know. It started as a curiosity, I guess. I've always been fascinated by your dresses, your scarves, the way you transform yourself. I wanted to, explore that, I guess." His mother smiled, her eyes warm. "I understand, sweetheart, and I'm flattered that you've taken an interest in my wardrobe." She paused, her smile turning thoughtful. "Although I have to say, I'm a little jealous of how good you look in my dresses." Isaac felt his cheeks burn, a mix of embarrassment and pleasure at her compliment. "But
In all seriousness, Isaac, I want you to know that it's okay to explore these things. It's a part of discovering who you are, and I support you fully. He nodded, his throat tight with gratitude. Thank you, Mom. It means a lot to hear you say that.
The relief that washed over him was immense, and he felt a new sense of freedom, no longer carrying the weight of his secret. The dresses, the scarves, they were no longer just a secret indulgence, but a shared bond between him and his mother. Christmas morning arrived, and Isaac woke to the sound of his mother moving about the kitchen downstairs. He lay in bed, a sense of contentment and excitement washing over him. The tree twinkled in the corner of his room, the presents beneath it a promise of the day's delights. He made his way downstairs, the familiar scent of pine and cinnamon filling his senses. His mother looked up from the stove as he entered, a soft smile on her face. "Merry Christmas, Isaac," she said, her eyes sparkling. "Merry Christmas, Mom," he replied, returning her smile. They shared a hug, the warmth of the moment enveloping them both. Isaac felt a new depth to their connection, a silent understanding passing between them. As they sat down to breakfast, Isaac noticed a smaller pile of gifts beneath the tree, the brightly wrapped packages a mystery. His mother noticed his curious glance and smiled. "I took the liberty of doing a little shopping," she said, her eyes twinkling. "Consider it an early gift from me to you." Isaac's heart raced as he realized what she meant. His eyes widened as he took in the shapes and sizes of the packages, his mind spinning with possibilities.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!